Well, hello everyone. Evan Day, young adult librarian at Rogers Public Library here to do some Dungeons and Dragons at the Rogers Public Library. And I've got my friend Brian here. I have never played
Hello.
Dungeons and Dragons before, not in a real game, but he here has a lot of experience, several years in fact, and he's going to show me how to create a character in 5th edition. Somebody wants to follow along with us, grab a character sheet. I believe any player's handbook will have information about this, and also DnDBeyond.com I think is a good reference source for a lot of stuff as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so what should I do first? I got my sheets here. What's the first step?
So the key to any successful D&D character is you need to have an idea of what kind of character you want to run beforehand. D&D is set in a sort of fantasy setting by default. So the general archetypes, you're going to have your tanks, your damage dealers, your healers, and your just overall spellcasters. So what, good sir, did you have in mind? Spellcasting?
Well,
Hitting with a big stick?
when I played the game Morrowind back in the day, I had a sort of Imperial Knight character that I wanted to do. So I thought basic sword, knight, probably fighter, slasher, heavy weapons sort of person.
All right.
Right, I was thinking.
So for a knightly character, we'd probably go more along the lines of fighter. There's another sort of heavy DPS melee class that's the barbarian, but they don't wear a lot of armor.
Right.
So we'll go ahead with the fighter. All right. So, do you have any dice on you, or shall I have to grab mine?
Dice, you say?
Yes.
I do not
For
have
the
dice.
starting a character. Oh, sorry. go
Oh,
ahead.
I do not have dice with me.
Okay. So for the starting character creation, you will actually need 4d6 for this particular step. Let me run
46.
this.
Yeah. I'm just thinking there might be some apps online or places where you can get a D6 dice.
All right. Sorry, that was me being unprepared.
Oh, no.
So I've got my handy dice bag. 4d6 under
I'm guessing there's probably a lot of apps or online sources for rolling
Oh yeah,
these
there's
square dice. But this is
absolutely.
You want an authentic feel.
Indeed. So there's a few methods, in fact, for choosing your stats. There's what's known as the standard array, as I've heard a lot of people call it, where you just get 6 numbers, and those numbers will always be the same when making a character. There's also a method called the point buy system that allows the GM to really control and micromanage how powerful the characters are. Basically, every stat attribute then starts at 8, and you're given a certain number of points that you can use to buy up the stats. My personal favorite, and the one that we're going to use today, is the rolling method, which has been around since the very beginning, where the other two methods are sort of newer. And this method is, originally, it was you just roll 3d6, and you do that 6 times to get your attributes. Nowadays, it's you roll 4d6, and you take the 3 highest numbers out of that roll. So, if you have a piece of paper or you want to write down the numbers I will be giving you.
Yes, I can do that.
It doesn't need to be a big piece of paper, just enough for 6 numbers to be written down.
Sure.
There you go. Excellent. All right. The first number is going to be 14. 5, 5, and 4.
Yes, got it.
The second number is going to be 10. 4, 4, and 2. I'm going to switch out this die because it's hard to see. There we go. Third number is going to be 10 as well. 5, 2, and 8. Or 5, 2, and 3. We're on the fourth number now. It's going to be 14. 554. Fifth number is going to be 8, 5, 2, and 1. And then we're on the final number now.
Mm-hmm.
By my count.
Yes.
That will be 14. 5, 3, and 6.
Okay, so I have 14, 10, 10, 14, 8, and 14.
Yes. I lost one of the die over here.
Yes.
Okay, so with those numbers, we're now going to arrange them in the stat block, as it's called. That is the... So the stat block is this column of squares right here. And those are your character's physical and mental attributes. Strength is your character's overall fitness. So it's more than just brute strength, but also maybe cardio and things like that. Dexterity, character's nimbleness, ability to move, use your hands, things like that. Constitution is different than your athletic fitness, where it is your just straight health. It dictates your hit points, and it's also used a lot for resisting poisons and diseases. Intelligence is how much you know. Wisdom is how well you know how to use what you know. And charisma is just your overall charm. So, for a fighter, the things we're kind of looking for are going to be strength or dexterity and constitution. Now, if you're trying to be more of a knightly class, you're probably trying to be, wearing heavier armor, wielding, a shield, probably a sword, so something like that. So we're probably going to go with more of a strength and constitution build. But we can't skimp on charisma either, because if you're a knight, you have to be shining armor, hair flowing in the wind, all that good stuff.
Yes. Well,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so we have 3 14s. That's
yes, that was actually pretty good. So just to put in perspective, 10 is the average human. Okay. So, and 20, of course, is like twice the average human. And 20 is, of course, also the max. So having a 14 is pretty high up there right off the bat. So before we get into building the fighter class, though, there's another step that also affects where these numbers go. And that is what race you are.
Yes.
So we've got a few races to choose from. Let me go to the appendix here. So we've got dwarves, elves, halflings, humans, dragonborn, those are always spicy, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, and sort of the half-demon race, the tieflings.
Well, I actually did look a little bit into this, and here's the thing. Ever since I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs. And my Imperial in Morrowind was an Argonian. So I actually might try the Dragonborn character.
Excellent. All right, let's over to that. Okay. So with the Dragonborn, and with any race really, they affect ability scores just because of their natural hardiness or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. So with the Dragonborn, your strength score is going to increase by 2, and your charisma is going to increase by 1. So for heavy armor, which is what we're going for basically, you need at least a strength of 15, or else you lose 10 of your speed, your overall maximum speed. So one of those 14s I would recommend throwing down into strength. Yep. And which, of course, because you're Dragonborn, will get +2 and become a 16, which will put you in the range for heavy armor.
Oh, good. So When I write that down, should I sort of just put 14 right here?
So you'll actually just go ahead and make it 16 because we know it's going to get the +2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's a racial bonus, it's a permanent +2. It's not like it'll go away or anything.
Excellent. Yes.
All right. Dexterity, because you're using heavy armor, isn't really going to play a big role in your ability to, dodge hits or anything like that. In 5e, you don't get a dex bonus with heavy armor. So I'm actually probably going to say we want to put the 8 into your dexterity bonus.
Makes sense there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming Constitution will probably be another one of those 14s.
Yes. If we're going for a tanky build, you definitely want Constitution to be one of those 14s.
Mm-hmm.
Your intelligence, what do we have left? We have one more 14, right?
One more 14 and 2 10s.
2 10s. We're going to go ahead and give you average intelligence. And then the question is, do we want more wisdom or do we want more charisma?
So now, what is the benefits of having wisdom in particular?
Wisdom affects things like your ability to read into somebody's motives. It also affects your ability to notice the things around you. Well, what else? So it dictates your survival skill, being able to find things in the wilderness. It's perception, of course, just noticing your surroundings and things that have changed. Your animal handling. So if you get a mount at some point, if it ever gets spooked, it helps you handle it a bit better. Maybe keep yourself from getting attacked by wolves by using animal empathy, things like that. And then also, where's the other one? Medicine and insight. Insight is useful if somebody's trying to deceive you or tell you a lie. Insight helps you see through that, things like that. Yeah. Medicine on a solo adventure or something like that isn't very good, but if you're in a group, if somebody goes down and they start bleeding out, medicine helps you to stabilize them so that they don't perish completely. And those are all under wisdom. As for charisma, your ability to perform, to tell tales, your ability to persuade others, to deceive others, to intimidate others, all those fall under charisma.
It's interesting. Both seem pretty good. I get a +1 for charisma as is.
You do get a +1 for charisma, yes.
So it's either 15 charisma and 10 wisdom, or 14 wisdom and 11 charisma.
Yes.
I make a choice here. What would you suggest? Did you think that, I'm inclined to think that I would go for wisdom here, but I may be making a mistake there.
That's probably what I would go with as well for this character, yes.
Yes, all right, that's well. So it's 14 wisdom and 11 charisma. Good.
Yes. So, now you'll notice under each of those boxes, right down in this little bubble. Yes, underneath the attribute or the bubble. That's what is going to be called your ability modifier. Now, to figure that out, it's the actual attribute. So we'll start with strength. Strength, you have 16 strength. It's that minus 10, which brings it down to 6, divided by 2, which is 3. So in that bubble, you'll put +3.
+3. Gotcha.
Now, the importance of the ability modifier is that, say, for things like athletics, which is strength-based, you use the ability modifier, not the score. So when we get into this in just a bit, because we're going to move over to fighter real quick, we'll go over it more when we get to that point. For now, let's just figure out the ability modifiers for everything else. So for dexterity, it's 8, which is going to be a -1, because it's 10 divided by 2. And then just figure out the rest for constitution, intelligence, and everything. It's
Sorry.
the ability score
Ability
-10.
-10 divided by...
And then that number divided by 2.
Oh, okay. So like Constitution 2 plus 2.
Yes.
So then intelligence -10
Is 0
is
divided
0.
by 2 is 0, yeah.
Is 0, 0. And then 14 is plus 2 again.
Mhm.
Then,
Oh, when you get to an odd number, it's rounded down.
oh, okay, so charisma will be 0.
So yeah, so 10 to 11 is 0.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, mathematics.
Yeah, it's fine. Math is the hardest part of this game, luckily.
Oh, yes. It's a good educational
All right, so
experience.
now... Oh, sorry?
No, just say it was education.
Yes. So now we got to find our way over to fighter. Because we got all the race stuff that we need down first. There are certain abilities and stuff like that that go with races, but what I like to do is I like to get all the number stuff down first. Then I'll go into special abilities and all that after all the numbers are down.
Okay.
So first gotta find fighter. Fighter, that's druid. There we are. There we go. Okay, so next on that list, we've got, where is it? Oh yes, right here. This little circle right here, it should, right under inspiration, it'll say proficiency bonus, it should. For that, because you are a first level fighter, the proficiency bonus, as shown on this table here, which is in the player's handbook. So it's just, as soon as you get to fighter, there's a box. And it'll tell you what your proficiency bonus is. You get +2, so put a +2 in that proficiency bonus.
Okay.
Next, underneath that, you have a couple of boxes right here and right here. These are skills and save boxes. Those dictate basically all of your non-combat actions in the game. So if you get to a point and you're like, I want to check for traps, I'll say, okay, go ahead and give me a perception check. And that will be in one of those boxes, specifically the skill box underneath. Now, what's neat is that next to each of those saves, it'll say what it is, then there'll be a dash, and then there'll be a circle.
Yes.
Those circles, we're going to fill in a few of those based on your class and other decisions. So, for the fighter, you'll want to fill in the circle for strength and constitution.
Constitution. Done.
Now, for those that you filled in, those are the saving throws that you are proficient with, which means that they also get your proficiency bonus in addition to the modifier for that attribute. So for the strength save, it's your strength modifier, not the attribute score, but the modifier plus the proficiency bonus. So in this case, it should be 5. And so just go ahead and write down on that dash 5.
Okay.
So if there's any point in time that I would call for a strength saving throw, you would roll a d20 and then you would add that number.
Understood.
Excellent. So, for any of those that are not filled in, I believe yours is only strength and constitution. So for dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, you would just use the ability modifier without the proficiency bonus.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. Go ahead and fill those in.
So so -1, 0, 0, or 0, 2, 0.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Next, we have some skills to choose from. We get to choose 2 of these skills I'm about to list off. And these are skills that you will also be able to check off as proficient. So from the skills acrobatics, handle animal, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. We'll get 2 of those. Since you're more of a knightly character, I'm probably going to say perception and either athletics or intimidation. Yeah.
Let's go with intimidation.
All right.
With the Dragonborn character.
Yeah, and that'll help bump up the fact that you only have a 0 in your charisma.
Yeah.
For your modifier. Yeah. Okay, so you marked intimidation and perception?
Yes.
Okay, and then with that, we can choose a background real quick, because a background will give you 2 additional things. So a background is basically, before you became an adventurer, what did you do in your life? Maybe you're an ex-soldier that became a knight because you were knighted because of your work. Maybe you were a folk hero, things like that. They have examples in here, but you can call it whatever you like.
Oh yeah.
So this is completely up to you from where your character came from.
Think about this. This is interesting. What if, and so you're not necessarily choosing from a list, you're just trying to get, ideas.
They have examples, but what I like to do is I like to just name whatever I want and then work from there.
Okay. I was thinking that he could have been a former soldier, but he could have been I kind of had the idea of somebody who had been captured by the enemy and had been rescued.
Okay, so he's basically indoctrined, forced to
forced or enslaved or something like that. And that he was escaped and rescued from that.
Now, are they aware of the fact that they have been enslaved, or is it something like they feel like maybe they've been rescued from a bad situation, they just don't know any better?
They were where they were enslaved at some point, so they were rescued from being enslaved. So yeah, I kind of have to say that.
Well then, we could probably use something akin to the Outlander, where maybe not. That one's different. Soldier's probably going to be the best fit.
Yeah.
Then, since they've been fighting the entire time, I imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Then yeah, soldier would probably fit better for that. Okay. That just means we can just use it. All right. So you gain proficiency in athletics and intimidation. So go ahead and mark athletics, and then we'll go ahead and we'll choose a different fighter skill since you're doubling up on intimidation, and it doesn't gain you any benefit.
I'll choose a different skill, so just any from this list. So could I choose?
Let me just get back to fighter real quick. A lot of flipping through the books. All right, here we go. So you get athletics, you get intimidation. You could go for either insight, animal handling, survival. Acrobatics probably isn't going to be very good because you have a negative in it, so it would still be pretty awful even. Plus you're wearing heavy armor.
Yeah. Well, I'm contemplating either survival or insight, which would give.
Those were the two I was looking at too. The question is, does your character spend a lot of time out in the wilderness, or do they spend more time, around nobles or other people that probably have owned slaves themselves?
I would say he's probably on the move quite a bit. So maybe survival would be the best.
Okay. That works. All right, and now with all of those chosen, we can now fill in the rest of the skills. You'll notice, like, if you look at the very top one, acrobatics, to the right of it, in parentheses, it says dex. Mm-hmm. That means that it's a dexterity-based skill. And so you would do it just the same as you did your saving throws. If you have the proficiency, you add your proficiency bonus. Otherwise, it's just the stat or the modifier.
So for my athletics, another 5. So it's 5 for athletics.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you're a healthy boy.
And it's like, is this, from your perspective, it's going to be backwards, but does this look about right here?
Athletics, insight, or intimidation. Intimidation is actually going to be 2 because it's based off charisma. So it's that 0 plus the proficiency bonus, which is 2.
Okay. So and then the other one, survival wisdom. Wisdom is...
Wisdom you have 2, so it'll be 4 for any of your wisdom stuff.
Right, so perception and survival is 4. Excellent.
Yep.
All right.
And then all the ones you don't have proficiency in, it's just going to be your modifier without the proficiency bonus.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you'll fill all of them in. It's just the ones you have marked will have proficiency bonus added.
Oh, okay. So, like, acrobatics is -1.
Yes, unfortunately, you're not tumbling anytime soon.
No, that's okay.
Not on purpose.
Okay, let me see. 2, and then 0, 0, 2, 0, 2. Make sure I get all this right. 0, 0, -1. So yes, that actually looks about right. Now,
excellent. So then, underneath your ability scores and your skills and everything, there's a little bar that says passive wisdom.
I see.
Right down there.
See.
Yeah. And that is basically what you would the average roll you would get when you roll perception. So what they do is it's 10 plus your perception. And then you just put that in there. So your wisdom is 2, you're proficient in it, so it's 4, so it'd be 14.
14.
Yes. And that's just an easy tool so that you don't have to roll perception for every single thing. It's like, okay, well, do you notice these guys just by glancing around? And the DM will make a roll and then check your passive perception, and then it saves time. It's very good. So, now that we've gotten all the numbers out of the way, it's time for armor and weapons.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, let's see. What do they give you right off the bat? So, you can start with either chainmail or leather armor and a longbow. You're a knight. You're going to have the heavy armor, so chainmail is going to be the choice. That I would write... There's this box right here. I would just start writing all the gear, weapons and stuff in this box.
Just like right here. Oh.
Right here. I'd write it underneath these 3 gray boxes. I'd start writing what I'm going to tell you until I say otherwise.
Chainmail.
Yes, chainmail.
Makes sense.
Next, you could get a martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons. Again, heavy armor, beefy boy. You're going to get a martial weapon and a shield. We'll go over the weapon, but just write down shield for now.
Okay.
Now the fun stuff is you could either get a light crossbow or 2 hand axes. This one I'll leave up to you.
Give me 2 hand axes.
Okay. They are throwable, so they will have a range as well, so you'll have a ranged weapon regardless. So 2 hand axes. I would just write 2x hand axes so that you don't take up extra slots that you don't need to.
Okay.
And then in this next one, I would write down in this line right here. Yeah, the one underneath the box we were just in, yeah. On that line, you'll get either a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. One is better suited for dungeon diving. The other is better suited for land-based travel, effectively. What do you think your character would be more attuned to?
Let's go dungeon diving.
Okay, so just write down the Dungeoneer's pack right there. It comes with a variety of items, and we'll go over what those items are. But for now, just so that we can remember it for later, we'll just write that down there. Okay. Now, before we go any further, we're going to find out what martial weapon you grabbed. And while we're at it, next to chainmail that you wrote down, go ahead and write AC 16. And next to shield, AC 2. And that'll just help us remember what AC you're supposed to be getting for those. Okay, so back to the weapon. We'll go over AC later.
Yeah.
All right, so for martial weapons, we've got the battle axe, the flail. We probably don't want two-handed weapons since we're using a shield. So we got a long sword or a morning star, which is like a maul, a heavy piece of metal on the end of a stick. Short swords, tridents, war picks, war hammers, or a whip.
I am inclined to think a long sword.
Yeah, there you go.
Just a good classic.
So I like that choice because the nice thing about the longsword in this system is it can be used one-handed or two-handed, and it does more damage if you wield it two-handed. So you got the options there.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, so we'll write down longsword. Now, these 3 gray boxes here, those are so that you can write down the weapons that you have and sort of the damage that they do and the bonus that you get for using it so that it's always right there. So we'll start with longsword. You'll write that in the top one.
Okay.
In the attack bonus, it'll be your strength modifier plus your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus because you are proficient with them.
So 8. Is that right?
Your strength modifier should be 3.
Strength modifier is 3 plus 2. Okay.
Should 5. So it'll be a plus 5 for the attack bonus.
Okay.
And then the damage will be 1d8 plus 3. So the way damage works is because it's a weapon you're wielding with your strength, melee weapon, you have its actual damage, which is 1d8, and you add your strength to it because you're throwing your weight behind the attack. So it's 1d8 plus 3. And then you have hand axes. So we'll put that in the second spot. And then the attack bonus for the hand axe, because it's thrown, is unfortunately going... Well, do we want to throw it? Well, I guess either way. It'll either be the same as the longsword if you don't throw it. But if you do throw it, it'll use your dex bonus instead.
Right.
Which is -1.
Which is, yeah, it was actually a lower there. But if I...
Yeah, probably just best, yeah, if somebody tells you to disarm, you throw your weapons down, they get close, you pull out your surprise axes, and you have at them.
Yes, exactly. That makes sense.
So it'll be plus 5 as well for the attack bonus. Strength plus proficiency, because you're proficient with them.
Right.
And then the damage is 1d6 plus 3.
Okay.
And then I don't believe you have any other weapons on you just yet, so we'll go ahead and we'll actually put the longsword again. Only this time, it'll still be plus 5 to attack bonus, but this time it'll be for the two-handed. So it'll be 1d10 plus 3 instead.
Okay.
All right. So we got those weapons down. Next, we're going to go back up to the sort of column right above that. And starting up here with armor class. Armor class is going to be all your armor mixed together, so the armor and the shield. But because you can have the option to not use the shield, I would put 16-18. So it's 18 when you have the shield, 16 when you don't.
Oh, okay.
Your initiative is going to be your dex bonus.
-1.
Yes, that is unfortunate, but it's all right. So initiative is whenever combat starts, everybody rolls a d20 and adds their initiative. And that determines who goes when. Not the speediest boy in the battle, but once you get in there, it's hard to take you down.
Exactly.
Your speed, you are Dragonborn, so it is 30 feet, because you have enough strength to wear the armor that you have. Your maximum hit points, I believe, are going to be 1d10. So it'll be 10 hit points plus your constitution modifier, so 12. And that will be your hit point maximum. Right? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And then underneath that, you have temporary hit points. You don't have any. That's something that changes all the time. Right here, your hit die. The very top, you're going to put 1d10. And then in the box, you're going to put 1d10 because you haven't used any yet.
Okay.
And what that is, during the game, you can take what's known as a short rest, like a 10-minute break as you're campaigning. And during that time, you can take any hit dice you have and roll them to regain that much HP.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a second wind, a little breather. Okay. Next to that is your death saving throws. That only comes into play if you ever reach 0 or less HP. And you'll be rolling a d20, and anytime you get above 10, you get a success. Below 10, you get a failure. Get 3 failures, you die. Get 3 successes, you stabilize.
Excellent.
All right, on to the right. Deal with that yet. Next, right here. We're going to go ahead and start putting... We already know you're pretty much proficient with any weapon, so instead we're just going to go ahead and use that for languages for now. I believe Dragonborn know... everybody will know Common, so you'll have Common. And... or Dragonborn. Ah, here they are. Okay, so Dragonborn, no Common, and Draconic. That's what I thought. So those would be the 2 languages that you know.
Makes sense.
And then we'll go over to this side. Yep. Those are your features and traits.
I see.
So because you're a Dragonborn, you have Draconic ancestry. Basically, you will have certain benefits from a certain dragon that you represent. So it also pretty much dictates the color of your skin. For the most part, this will affect your damage resistance, which you get as a Dragonborn, and also your breath weapon, so you can breathe an element. So the options are, if you have Black Dragon ancestry, you have resistance to acid, and you can spit acid. If you have blue dragon ancestry, it's lightning. If you have brass dragon, it's fire. Bronze is lightning. Copper is acid again. Gold is also fire. Green is poison. Red is also fire. Silver is cold. And white is also cold.
Blue might work.
Yeah.
For me, yes.
Blue dragons. They're the best.
Yes. Okay.
So you'll have blue dragon as your ancestry. Next, you have a breath weapon. I'd just write that down. And I write lightning.
Okay.
And then damage resistance lightning as well.
Okay.
And then I'm the kind of player that likes to write all this down, and then if I want to look something up, I'll look it up on Google or something, because there's plenty of information. So that's where I would stop writing. But if you want to, you can also write down that it's basically a 30-foot line for your breath weapon.
Okay.
And that it's also in parentheses, I put dex save, so that you know that any creature that's trying to avoid the damage has to make a dex save to avoid it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Just
And then underneath that, I'd put, in parentheses, DC 8 plus con. And then that's what they have to beat or make in order to avoid your breath weapon. Is 8 plus your constitution modifier. Alright, and then that's it for what you get for being a Dragonborn. Next we go back to Fighter. And you start off with a fighting style. Yes.
Okay.
So, a fighting style is just your specialty in the way that you fight. Such examples are, maybe you like to fight with bows, so you'd have an archery fighting style. Or maybe you prefer to have a defensive fighting style, which gives you a +1 bonus to your AC. Or a dueling style, probably not going to go with that. That one is if you wield a weapon in one hand and nothing else. So no shield, nothing else. That's not going to happen as much, I don't feel. Great weapon fighting is when you're wielding a weapon two-handed. Probably not as well. Protection style, when a creature you can see attacks a target other than you that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to give them disadvantage on that attack roll. But you must have a shield, which you have a shield. That makes it so that it's harder for them to hit your friends that are near you. And then two-weapon fighting, which is if you're wielding a weapon in each hand. And that allows you to add ability modifier to the damage of that second attack.
Okay.
I would probably recommend either protection, if you're going to try and make it harder to hit others, or defense, to just give you a straight +1 to your AC.
Let's go with protection.
Okay. And then fighting style protection. And then you also get a second ability called Second Wind from Fighter. And this is, on your turn, you can use a bonus action, which is, you basically get one action, one move action. This is a bonus action. It's an action that's just given to you extra. And it allows you to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter's level. It can only be used once per long or short rest. So a long rest is when you go to sleep at night. A short rest is when you take 10 minutes to heal up and things like that.
Okay.
So once between that, you get to just regain health in the middle of combat. Fighters are stupidly hard to kill.
Yes, that's what I was going for, I think.
All right, and then that's it for fighter. Things like that. Okay, so got that. Next, we can go over purchasing some items, or we could do that later. You do have some that you started out with, of course, because you got the Dungeoneers pack.
Yeah.
Any items that you get from that, like all your items and gear and stuff will be in there. Speaking of, you start out with a pool of cash. So let me get to finding out how much money you do have. Okay. Now this was the part that's probably going to be the most tricky to do online without having a book in your hands or the information in front of you, because there are a lot of items you can buy. However, that can be done in your own time. There's plenty of resources to find it. We won't worry too much about specifics here. What we will worry about here, however, is the easy part, and that is your starting wealth. Fighters start with 5d4 times 10 gold. Now, I said that fast, so we'll just do all that math real quick. Okay. So we got to roll 5d4. We'll do it 2 dice at a time. So 6. 5 is 11. Okay, so you have 150 gold pieces, which is represented in these slots right here. CP is copper, SP is silver, EP is electrum. Never seen that before. GP is your gold pieces. It's this one right here, and you'll have 150 of those.
150. Okay.
Put it into perspective. 10 copper makes 1 silver. 10 silver makes 1 gold.
Okay. EP.
And so now we can. What I like to do is, just because I have the pack, I like to write down everything that comes with the pack separately so that I know exactly what I have as far as items go. So we've got the Dungeoneers pack. So that gives you a backpack. And so underneath that, in those lines, is where I would usually write all this stuff. So it's a backpack, a crowbar, a hammer. Okay, 10 pythons, which are sort of like those little circular metal prongs that people hammer into the side of mountains so that it can rope around. Yeah, it's climbing equipment. 10 torches. A tinderbox, which is a fire starter, basically. 10 days worth of rations. A water skin. And this pack will also have 50 feet of rope strapped to the side of it. Some things I would probably recommend picking up in addition is for 1 gold piece, I get a bedroll. That way you have a means of sleeping.
Okay.
Let's see. Next, is there anything else that I think is necessary? If you're forced to do the cooking, you'd probably have a mess kit, which is 2 silver pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So it would leave you with 8 silver pieces left after the 1 gold.
Okay.
And then if we want to really go... Nah, you probably wouldn't have that. Maybe... No, you have torches. That's fine. That was probably all that they would give you. Maybe some common clothes, but I mean, you're going to have clothes. It's going to be fine. Yeah. That's probably it. That's probably the only thing outside of the pack that I'd say is probably necessary is a bad roll.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so now that we've got all the mechanical stuff out of the way, at the very top, you can go ahead and write your character's name.
Okay.
And then your class and level next to that will be Fighter and 1.
And Dragonborn is the race.
Yep.
Okay.
Your alignment, because you're a fighter, you're not restricted to any alignment. Lawful doesn't mean necessarily that you follow the law, but more that you have a strong moral code that you follow, and you always adhere to it. So that's what lawful is. Chaotic, not so much. You're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve the goal that you're after. Good, you're generally good-natured. You know, you go out of your way to help others, things like that. Evil, pretty selfish is more what it means, rather than, you know, you're not going to go out and kill a child because you're evil, but you're selfish. Your ambitions are for you only. These people that help you, they're there, but they're your tools to help you, things like that. And then neutral is sort of a gray middle ground for everything.
Yeah.
You're not so selfish that you're evil, but you're not so selfless that you go out of your way to help everybody, things like that.
I am genuinely... Go ahead.
Sorry?
I was just saying, yeah, I do know a little bit about how alignment works. But
okay.
But it's good that we all explain all that. I think I've thought about it a little bit. This may be slightly boring, but I'm going with a lawful good.
No, absolutely. Especially if you've been raised as a slave, you've probably been given, like, you know, strict rules that you have to follow, and so lawful is there. But you know, you're not a mean person, you're not a bad person by any means. So lawful good works in that just fine. Background, you wanted to say that you're sort of like a slave soldier. You've been forcibly taken in and things like that.
I kind of had the idea that he had been rescued from being a slave.
Oh, okay. So he's been rescued. Okay, so then right, but this is his life. This is the upbringing that got him these skills that he. So if he learned, you know, this would probably just put soldier, because regardless of whether or not he was a slave, you know, he was brought up as a soldier. That was his life before this point.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and put soldier in the background.
Yes. Excellent.
All right. Then right here, these things. These are your ideals, your personality traits, your bonds, and your flaws. Generally, you'll have at least one of each. So a personality trait is sort of a quirk or something that's very defining to the character themselves. So it might have something to do with their upbringing. It might just be something that, you know, they've always had. It could be, but it's usually personality based, less like a scar or something, and more like an actual quirk of the character.
Okay. Yeah.
Ideals.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Ideals are what they hope to achieve, what their ultimate end game is by performing the actions that they do. Like, not necessarily like an adventure sense, but what they as a person want to achieve in the end.
Okay.
Bonds are your reasons for sticking with the group. For a lawful good, if they were the ones that rescued you, maybe you owe them a life debt because they rescued you from this slavery, or perhaps because that you were rescued and now you treat them as a friend, that now they're like your new family, and so you won't abandon them because of that. And then, of course, flaws are always the most fun. They're things that basically give the GM a tool to push your character to grow. So maybe you are just so honest that you can't help but give up secrets every now and then without meaning to. And so the GM could use that weakness, if the enemy knows about it, to sort of get information out of the party because your character just doesn't know any better, things like that.
Yeah. That sounds about right, actually. For this guy.
And that's pretty much all the stuff that I would need to help you out with. Everything on the second sheet, this sheet, is pretty much all background for the character. You've got the literal backstory section. The additional features and traits are sort of like physical characteristics of your character. So if they're missing an eye, that's where I'd put that. If they have a scar, things like that. Their allies and organizations, that I would, discuss with the GM, like, can I have this organization backing me or something like that? But a lot of the time I'll just put religion. Like if they're a follower of a certain deity, I'd put that there. If that deity has a holy symbol, you can draw it down there and put the name of the order or whatever it is. You can draw your character in that spot. And then treasures, of course, are like not necessarily items that you use for adventuring, but items that are very personal to the character, like an amulet or something from like their mother or something like that would be put into treasures, things like that.
Oh, cool.
And that pretty much covers for a combat class. The addition is the spell sheet, which you won't use because you're not a spellcasting class yet. Fighters can become a spellcasting class, but you're not one yet. But yeah, that's where you'd put in. You up here, your spellcasting. These are the spellcasting modifiers and DCs. The spellcasting ability would be whatever is based on the class. The save DC is also based on the class, and the the spell attack bonus is based on class as well. You'd have your cantrips, first level spells. Regardless, that doesn't fit with this character, but that's where all that would go, and that's all laid out in the class itself.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's
there you go. You have a fighter.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I'll fill out the other details, I think, and
yes, because they're all like personal to the character, so that would be.
Yeah, and maybe next time I'll, if we, again, we'll be able to finish up that, and then maybe actually have this guy do something as well.
I'll throw together a single person campaign. Maybe throw in an NPC ally, just so you're not all alone. And then we'll run something. It'll be fun.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it. And wonderful. Again, if anybody is more interested, what are some good resources if you are interested in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons or tabletop games in general? What would you suggest?
D&D Beyond is good for 5e, but however, like, Google is your best friend. Like, anytime I have any questions or trying to find specific things just on the fly, just Google it. I do recommend, if you like, picking up a handbook, but if you can find a PDF, they work just as well. And that goes for any system. The handbook is going to be your greatest resource, unless, of course, they have their own like official external resource. But once you start getting used to things, and you start getting used to the system and what's in the system, I mean, Google's going to be the fastest, easiest way to find any information on anything specifically.
That's great. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up here again. Since I do want to let people know we are doing summer reading and curbside pickup at the library. If you go to our library website, you should find a place to sign up for summer reading, get some free stuff, and just for reading. That's for kids, teens, and adults. So check it out. I got some fun games there as well. Anyway, thank you, Brian.